Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the EntreMusician podcast. This time, we're talking about the basic thing that everybody should do in a production meeting. These are not the easiest conversations to have, but they're very, very necessary for you as the important thing to get taken care of. Yes. And for you to do as the EntreMusician. You're in charge of your career. This is how you take charge. Today, I'm with Danny Jones and Thomas Alexander, and we're talking about a project that we're going to be working on. So we invite everyone to join in and check out what we're doing. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Who else?
All right. So,
If I Run project.
If I Run. What did I call it? I call it something else. What did I call that? I call it Run to something.
Well, let's run
to you.
But what is the official title?
It's called If I Run.
If it is If I Run. Okay.
If I Run.
In parentheses to you. I'm kidding.
Yeah, the key.
Yeah, I just grabbed that.
Yeah. Well, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Yes.
Thomas, any luck reaching out to the original author?
I have tried. I've reached out to all the different people, and nobody's heard from him.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's even alive.
I understand.
So, I mean, I would love to have been able to reach out to him and made contact with him.
Right. The next step is going to be to like Google him and put in any details that you might have. Well, I switched it. Man, my dyslexia kicking in.
So I went on Facebook to see if he was on Facebook. I even went on YouTube and typed his name in.
Right.
And there was another guy on there that didn't look like him at all. And then on Facebook, there was another guy that had a very similar name, and no, he didn't look like him at all either.
Well, I have a way we can guarantee we'll find him.
Well, the other ways might be through
tell him he has money.
No, well, there's that. I was gonna say no. I was gonna say put out the song, let it be a hit, and make it.
Yeah.
And then he'd show up.
And him.
Because I mean, it's his song, right?
Well, this really is kind of a big deal because if we don't know who he is, we would never be able to place this anywhere if we can't prove that we don't own the song or who did it. And nobody is going to touch this if they think that the business end has not been taken care of. I mean, I've already run into this. I mean, I have another song, and there's some question, not about the writers, that's set, but there's a little bit about the ownership, although I was one of the original owners. But in talking to Barry Coughing, he's just like, he's not even going to touch it. He said, no. He said, you've got to have all your legal stuff, or nobody is going. I don't care how great it is, nobody's going to touch it because nobody wants to get sued. So that's really, 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 really important because I'm sitting on several things right now that I think are great, but I don't have all that stuff together yet, and I can't really finish it. I can't give it to anybody. And I've already been told. He said, I can't guarantee you this, but I know I can place this. However, if you don't have all of your, ducks in a row legally, he said, I am not going to risk a client of mine being sued, because all the legal stuff wasn't in order. So
the only other, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the only other thing would be the information from SOCAN, and that's really the end of the line for me for trying to find out whether or not there's a way to reach him through SOCAN.
What is SOCAN?
It's like BMI
Equivalent of
or
BMI, ASCAP, and those.
Okay.
ASCAP and that.
So you're right. Is he Canadian?
No, he's French.
It's a French sounding name, but that
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
always
no,
mean.
he's from France.
Okay.
And he was a DJ here in Canada. And him and I did this tune. Or I sang his tune.
Okay. So he's the sole writer.
Yeah, he's the writer of it.
Okay.
And
And I
apparently,
figured, you know, it was, you know,
tracks.
we had it released way back when. This is like over 30 years ago was when it was recorded.
Yeah.
And we released it. And it did chart on the Canadian charts.
Oh, so it was an official release then?
It was an official release.
So that means you said 30 years ago they were using UPC codes.
Well,
then do you have a UPC code for it?
I personally don't, but let me just look and see if there's anything. I'd have to go
like,
to my.
Was it on a official CD or
It was with a small label, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the small label
Well, here,
didn't have any money, so
if that's the case, then we're not in any trouble in terms of it's just like us, we're just recording somebody else's song. And if it's already been released, then we have to request a license, but they can't refuse us the license.
Exactly.
Right.
We could get the compulsive licensing. And I was suggesting before, maybe the next step might be if we can't find the original owner, just do the compulsive licensing route. And then hopefully maybe that might trigger some interest and or contact from the previous label, even if they're defunct, or the copyright owner.
But whoever had and I guess it would be the record company, would have a copyright, for the sound recording of it. But if the label, I ran into this a few years ago with an album that I did. The guy that originally had the masters that we did the project for actually sold them, but I've had possession of them for over 30 years. And I was wanting to do something with him, and he said, well, the distributor, this thing, being the distributor, and he said, first of all, he's retired. The company's shut down. And he said, I really don't own that. But I got him to send us a letter, an email, just saying, that particular record, so we distributed that. I don't remember the wording offhand, but basically said, I have no claim on this. I do not own this.
Exactly. And that's very key. And that was very smart to do.
Okay.
And it's registered. It's registered through ASCAP, or like he's through ASCAP.
Well, we should be able to find that out.
You should be able to look him up. Look up his IPI number.
I have. Let me just peek here.
And I
have an IPI number, but this is like another tune that him and I had actually co-wrote together.
Oh, that's perfect.
So there's a couple of tunes that him and I had co-written, but If I Run was his song. It was a tune that he wrote, and I just sang on it.
No problem. But that's beautiful. See, that's why it makes sense to register your metadata.
Yeah.
So with his correct spelling and his IPI number, we can now zero in on possibly getting in touch with him, because if you reach out through ASCAP, they might be able to put you in touch with the rights holder. Now, is the name of the publisher for the song?
There's no publisher.
Okay, because they could be one and the same. Sometimes people register tracks like.
But I would also, depending, even though that was a small label, I mean, the law, at least here in the United States, that was explained to me, was if the song, if the song was not copyrighted, it was not supposed to be able to be played on any kind of terrestrial radio.
Well, people do that all the time, you know.
They do that now.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that that I'm not saying that everybody enforced it, but that's what was always told to me. If it's not copyrighted, then we can't play it. I'm just telling you what I was told. Now I'm also basing this on 30 and 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, lots of things. We didn't used to do a lot of things.
Because my point is like, for example, with sync licensing, a lot of people will write these short snippet tracks, right, for the purpose of a sync brief. They are not going through the copyright office. They are not registering any song metadata. They are not doing any of all of the above steps to releasing that song.
I had the impression, because I've recorded a lot of sound libraries, for people in past years. And I think what was done is they would put every one of those tunes under one title. It was like one piece, and then it could be copyrighted.
Yes, you can register it as a collection.
Yeah.
And then
but you know what? I'm not totally sure that they even did that. But that's one of those, when I say I don't know, I mean that literally. They may have done that, they may not. I don't know. That was really none of my business. That wasn't my concern. I didn't ask. They didn't offer. And I don't mean anything negative. It's just, no, here it is. It's finished. Here are your mixes. Boom. There you go. Thank you very much. Pay your bill.
Yeah, I get that.
And that's the way it was. So, but yeah, I think, and I don't just think, I mean, you are correct with as far as all of this. But, but that's not what these were. These songs, I mean, they were talking about, commercially released songs had to have some kind of copyright. But I can't imagine a record company not having a publishing company that
there was no publisher attached to it.
Yeah, but I just can't believe that didn't exist. Is there any way to find out who owned that company?
Yeah, I know the name of the guy that owns the company. It's no longer a record company anymore.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this: of the things that, and let me just go ahead and say this out loud, and that is, everything that I tell you is my opinion.
Okay, no, that's good.
And that opinion, I mean, some of it is based on, a whole lot of years of doing this and feeling like, yeah, this is my opinion, but I actually really, truly believe this to be fact. When we start talking about what we're going to talk about in a moment, in the subjective area, all I can give is my opinion. But as I lead into this, I don't know how much of the music so far that's been done that Darrell did, and how much are we using from what was there on the original recording. And the reason I say that, if we've used part of the original recording, then someone could lay claim to that. If we don't use any of that, and even though, let's say we used it, but you did all of this other stuff kind of playing to it, but if one by one you're not using those parts, then they don't have claim to that. Because it's like, for example, your vocals, you've redone your vocals, all the stuff that Darrell, that you've done, no one has claim to that, but you. So I don't know what those other parts are, and if they're not that important, or we just redo them, then
which would be the thing to do. I think I would just redo the parts, and it's actually minimal. Out of the 6 tracks that I was able to get from the original recording, I used parts of too. So it would in effect be a sample, if you will. And I could just replay those myself on the key. So that would eliminate.
Well, but you know what? Even I understand what you're saying, and that's kind of what I was, kind of getting around to. So I'm in total agreement. But just as a side note, even if we use something as a sample, technically, you got to pay somebody to use that sample. And what I'm saying is, it's just best. I mean, unless it's just something that cannot be reproduced, and it was such an integral part of the record, then I think you just make it safer to just redo it and not use any of the original. And it's just, okay, well, we copied the,
Well, it's the copy of the chord progression and the melody and the words.
Yeah. So I mean, the song is still the song.
Right. You just want to totally, you just want a totally clean master, a new master that would be totally ours.
Yeah. So now this is where it comes into, like, that's my opinion. That's my opinion on what I think should be done, just simply because no one has a claim at that point. The songwriter.
It's a good opinion.
Pardon me?
It's a good opinion because, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have, this kind of thinking as to what we can and can't do.
Yeah. Well, let me give you another one, because I've seen this happen twice in my little career, where people use things from another record and it started getting a lot of airplay, and they got sued and said, "You get this off the air now." And these people had already paid for recording sessions. They'd paid for mastering records. They'd gone out and done radio promotion and had to pull everything. And I've seen that happen twice. And you don't want that to happen.
No, of course not.
I think we're in agreement. So it's worthwhile for me to take the time and redo those two pieces. And I can tell you specifically, the pieces were like the keyboard line and the bass line. One of the bass lines. I don't know if you listen closely. There are actually two bass lines on there.
The sub part.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sub
actually
is new.
I listened to it 2 or 3 times today, and now this is where, again, opinions come in. Personally, now let me make this comment. As a mixer, I'll mix anything anyone sends me, sort of. I mean, I don't mix everything.
We understand what you mean.
Yeah. But if someone says, "Yes, man, this is my vision, and I just want you to do the best you know how to do at doing this," I can do that. That being said, since we've talked about, okay, how much involvement, do I want to have in this one way or the other, I think there's a stronger arrangement of this song than is there.
Okay. So when you say that, what are you suggesting that we do, in other words?
Well,
and be frank, please.
Well, I am. I think the first thing that I would do is I would slice and dice my rough mix and go. And what I mean by arrangement, part of it is actual structural arrangement of the song. The groove of the song is pretty doggone cool. I mean, it really is, and that it caught me. I mean, I'm moving right now thinking about it. So that's good. However, that's all it does from beginning to end. And
right, I got what you're saying.
And it drops out in places that there could be, again, an opinion, but I think it could be done a little bit differently than the way it is to make it a stronger record. And I can't tell you exactly what I would do, except that what I would do is I was starting to say, is I would go through and I have it on my computer, and I just try putting things around. And I think there needs to be added some other. There's some chords that could be added sometimes that to just add a little interest that really doesn't change like the melody of the vocal, but you go along with the same thing all the time, and then occasionally if you do something like bam bam, just something that gives it a little
Take it out of and bring it back.
yeah, yeah. And I
Are you
think
thinking in terms of accents, or are you just talking about in terms of
not necessarily. Sometimes something
movement?
well, just movement, and it doesn't necessarily move the drums or necessarily the full
Right. You
groove,
said
but
rhythmic, I mean harmonic movement. Like add, like you mentioned chords.
yeah,
I mean add some different chords like in
yeah. If it's like dum, bum, bum, and just to add in places that gives it a little more interest, but also it's just a little bit of a. I don't know if this is the best metaphor to use, but it's like a punctuation, uh, a little comma in there,
get that.
or something like that. I also think that when we do this, I think you have sung more lead vocal than needs to be on the song. I think there are places where you could take that vocal out and we could add another instrument in places to make the vocal a little more special, when it's coming in. Because, and I'm not saying that what's there is bad. I'm just saying I feel that there is a way to make the whole thing more interesting.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And I can't tell you specifically because I hadn't figured it out yet. But I listened to it several times, like I said today. I listened to it before, and the first time I heard it, I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And I do think it's pretty cool. What's there is cool. To me, it's not a complete production the way I'm thinking. I mean, it's certainly long enough. It's certainly this, and there's things in there that that can be used. I think that well, I'll go a step further. I don't think there's anything in there I'm talking about getting rid of, other than I don't think we need all the vocals.
Changing, okay, and changing out the original parts to new parts so that it's a totally new masterpiece.
Yeah, because I think it needs to come on a little bit stronger. Like there's no bass in the beginning. It's just like drums and the vocals. I get where you're coming from, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. And again, this is where it goes back to being an opinion, and this is mine. But in my opinion, I think we could come on stronger. And what I mean by stronger, when it starts, and I don't know that we necessarily. But as a matter of fact, I don't think we need to do your intro vocal where it is right there. I just don't think, not yet.
Okay.
Let's do it. But then in some of the verses, I can see possibly, dropping out. There's some other dropouts that kind of almost everything stopped. And to me, that just feels a little odd to happen, where they're happening. So that's my 2 cents worth.
I can make those changes on my end, but I would like direct input at the time that I'm doing it. So we'd probably set up a production session, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing. And yes, absolutely we'll do that because some of those now, man, there's a lot of cool parts in there now. So I'm still going to go back. Sometimes I feel like I have to not defend myself, but at the same time, I don't want anyone thinking that I'm being, well, I'll start to say super critical, but I am being super critical.
Well, again, no, in other words,
yeah, you have to be.
You're acting in the role of a producer, and it's very appreciated and desired and I'm kind of hoping that we'll ultimately decide to go in that direction. It would be helpful also when you hear these things, in your production ear, if you could make note of, like the time point where you would suggest the change and what the changes you're suggesting, and all of that. Yeah. Some of these things may be able to be done on the production side with what's already there, and you cutting and pasting and moving things around yourself.
Well, I think so. And I really do. First of all, we haven't collaborated on anything yet together, so that's why I just kind of, throw these things out.
That's what this discussion.
I never mean to say anything that's negative. I mean, if I do, then shame on me, because I've never found that to be effective, and I don't like to be that way. But also, let me say this. I mean, I have ideas, but that doesn't mean that my idea is always the best idea. It means that I feel that it needs something here. Here is a suggestion. Now, if you have a different way that we think is better, well, you didn't hurt my feelings at all. Because I try not to take this stuff personally. I mean, sometimes we can, to a degree.
I get it. It's all creativity.
Yeah. But and I've made this comment many times, so you guys may have heard me say it. I don't care where the ideas come from. It's just, if I'm the producer, it's just my job to make sure they come.
Right.
And quite often, good, bad, or indifferent, and I'm going to take it as good. I can't think of any time that I actually ran out of an idea in production. Now, that may sound, well, who is he? But I'm not saying all those ideas were wonderful. And I am saying at times when someone else said, well, I don't like that. And I said, well, what you got? And sometimes somebody would come up with something. I go, oh my gosh, that is so much better than what I came up with. So I'm not necessarily in love with all of my ideas, but I do know that they will work. But so all I'm saying is I always want to make sure that we have an atmosphere of creativity with this.
Exactly.
And I do this with every session that I do. When I'm and we're sort of doing this in our own way here, but when I bring people in, well, it's like this last project that I did same stuff. They sent me the song, and it's like, yeah, this is cool. However, let me play with it. And they sent me a live recording in a rehearsal hall on WhatsApp. And I took that and I just put that over into my Nuendo, and I just started slicing and dicing, and came up with different stuff. They thought I was a genius because I did it in WhatsApp. I didn't want to tell them any different. But then I would give that to them, and then they would make the changes in a rehearsal. And then they would record it and they would send it back to me. Well, I didn't actually use the whole band. Just the singer came up here. So I had, two different groups. I'm getting two sessions in my mind because they happened right after each other. But we set up in the studio, and I was playing drums on those things. So I had the drums set up, back behind, but it's like, okay, we had a little campfire, so to speak, and I'm sitting there with my pad, and, I got, the guitar player over here and the bass player over here. And we have the structural arrangement for the most part worked out before we even go into the studio, because we've done our pre-production. But now I bring people in who weren't necessarily in there. And I don't necessarily have every single thing worked out up here. But I go, okay, let's go here. And we just do, I'm just like patting on the knee or whatever. And, they're playing in the room, the singer's in there, and we go over it. And it's like, what can we do here to make this a little more interesting? Something needs to happen here. And we could do something like this or do something like that, or the intro. Okay, guitar player. This was on another session. I said, we need something really cool for the intro on this. We need some really cool intro lick just to bring this into this. So then we sit there and we work on something for just a few minutes. We come up with something, pretty quickly and go, yeah. So my point is, I didn't tell everybody exactly what to play. I look at it as like, again, it's like I'm the captain of the ship when I am producing. And we're here and we need to be here. Well, there's different ways we can go to get there. All I care about is that we get there and we get there
Right.
safely and that it's in good shape, when we get there.
Sense. And that's a key role of the producer, to make sure that the project progresses from idea to product.
Yeah.
So totally.
And I do have to say, I have a pretty good track record of getting airplay. Because we generally make records that make sense, and if they're not saying something, then we've just missed the boat, or we're just not done yet.
I got you.
So those those are my thoughts. But all this stuff can take time. I wish I was the fastest guy in the world and could come up with all these brilliant ideas like that. But not always the case.
Yeah, I get it, but I think we need to apply the rule that done is better than perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for a lot of these projects, because we could go back and forth and we'll run into brick walls based on my limitations, musical skill and all of these types of things. But once we get the product to the point where the idea that we had for the piece is where, we're conveying the idea successfully, I think, artistically.
Yeah.
And all of that. And we get it to sound such that we're all proud of the piece, of the product, and everything. Then at that point, I personally feel that we're good to go.
Well, we need to have, and I don't mean this literally, but I do in a sense. It's like, a deadline. I hate dedeadlines, but thank goodness for them.
Yeah.
And again, these things I've said many times.
Get stuff done in a timely fashion. Because I don't think anybody has time to devote on this for the next 6 months.
No, I certainly do not. Right. And it's why I choose what I get in, because I have other things that it's like, oh yeah, I get started with this. But, it's unfortunately for me, I tend to put everybody else's before mine. So therefore, I'm the one with the most incomplete, productions, because something comes up and I go, oh, okay. And I have other people involved. But, I don't see anything coming into this that that you can't do, because I don't really hear anything that's that far out there. I mean, it's a relatively simple production,
so
it's
not going to be.
I like that. But at the same time, it's like, if again, I made my little notes today, and I always have maybes, maybe, maybe. What is that word there? Yeah. Anyway, arrangements. Maybe re-sing the song after we've done, what we're talking about doing. We certainly have enough vocals right now to do what I'm talking about doing, as far as rearranging the song. But we may get to the end and we may, you may feel it better. You may hear it and say, you know what, I want to take another shot at this. It doesn't mean we lose what we have. Right. We always have what we have. But then I wrote down, maybe saxophone. And because what I'm hearing is taking some of the vocals out, just to let it breathe a little more, and have another instrument. And I'm thinking saxophone. I don't have a particular player in mind.
Would you think of like a soprano sax instead of a tenor?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't thought that far into it.
Because I did another reggae tune where I did quite a bit of violin on it.
Well, that's a thought too. Forgive me, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, no, that's the cool thing about that is, yeah. I mean, you can do it. Let's see if it works. That's not the instrument, but you know what? Jazz violin is not actually the instrument that always comes to mind for me.
True.
So
it's gonna be you're gonna think more standard stuff like horns and
yeah,
horn, which
yeah.
are the usual go-tos. But I'm not that artist.
Well, I mean, none of us are all things. And that's why, if there's something that we think we really, really need, there's somebody out there, and they're not, I mean, depending on who it is, of course, but it's not going to cost a fortune, if we need somebody. I had, I mean, I know some people, of course, myself, and a lot of these people are, have home studios, and they can do things. When I did that mix for Robin, I thought there was some really nice playing on that. And I asked him, I said, man, who played on this? And he said, I got these guys online. I mean, I think the drummer was his drummer. His drummer, someone that he knew. But he got, it's like some of the guitar parts. But, what you guys didn't hear is I took a lot of those parts and I did my own. I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I took the good stuff and the stuff that I didn't think is good, you never heard, because I, I, I would take this section and I would put it within, and I'm talking about like within solos. In this case, it was the guitar player, you know, and I just tightened the ideas up.
Right.
It's like, I could take this and I could put this in. Oh, yeah. Oh, this works
I
better.
do that all the time. I totally
Yeah.
get it. I totally.
Yeah. And I mean, that whole intro, I mean, the guitar player played the intro, but he didn't play it like you hear it now.
You arranged it. You rearranged
it. Yeah. But all that stuff. Well, first of all, the ingredients have to be there. You can be the greatest chef in the world, but if you don't have the ingredients, you can't make a great dish.
Right. And that's that I think we should sort of segue into the next part of this, which is bringing the ingredients to you and you being involved to do the piece that you want to do. And I think the next part of the discussion we need to have is your level of involvement. Where do you feel like you want to be? What is it going to require for us to get you, to do what it is that you feel you want to do? And what does that look like for everybody? And is everybody on the same page?
Right.
I'm bringing my redo of the music. Thomas is bringing his redo of the vocals, and you're bringing in your production skills and engineering mixing skills and all of that. What does this collaboration look like? And what does each person feel like the collaboration should look like? Do people want to be paid? If so, how much? Or are we willing to work on a different arrangement or something like that? And that needs to be the next piece we discuss.
Yeah. If I were just to charge you what I would charge to do all this, you probably wouldn't pay it. So I've been thinking about this ever since we talked about it. I've been thinking about it all day. How do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? The production is one part of it. Mixing is kind of another thing. I mean, I do both, and most of the time when I produce, I mix. It's rare that I do something different, than that.
Right. They're ultimately connected. I totally get that.
I mean, it would also be nice when this was all said and done that we had, a stereo and a Dolby Atmos mix. I wish I could tell you that I do these mixes in like 2 or 3 hours. I don't.
No.
You You have no idea how much time I spend on some of these, you know, and
it's an art as well. So I understand that, Pete. I understand
yeah.
when you say that.
So I'm thinking, and by the way, this is my most unfavorite part of all of this. Talking about
everybody's, and then that's why I just jumped right in, because
yeah.
this is a conversation that everyone really should be having when they're having these types of production meetings.
Yeah. Well, most of the time I just give a price. If I know what it is, it's like, okay, it's like you know, it depends. I don't like to say.
I mean, realistically, I mean, with what we have and what
Yeah.
we all know what we have. We have the tracks, we have the vocals, we have the ideas, and we now have you as another resource.
Yeah.
What
Well,
what would this look like? What would we be looking at in terms of like investment to get this project done?
if I was going to, let's just say, I'll kind of back into it from the front end. Let's just say from a mixing perspective, I would say as much work as I think I'm going to be doing on the production work,
Yeah,
I
that's
would, I would like to, if you guys are in agreement with, you know, like my suggestions about, well, we should do this and do this and do this, then I would go, I mean, if we could just do like thirds, we could be equal partners in this, you know, because of the work that everyone has done. Now, you know, this again, all of us, that's why we're talking about this. We all have to agree. You know, you may go, well, I don't know, man, does he deserve that much or not? But that's what I would like to do. Now, for me, ideally would be there's two ideals. One ideal is I give you my top rate and you pay it. Okay. Now the other thing is, okay, what if we do some cash, but also a partnership in this? Because the kind of the partnership is from the whole the production aspect of it, but then I get some cash for uh, mixing. And
mixing.
I'm not saying it has to be $700. That just let me tell you what it does for me. What it does for me is it helps me pay for all this stuff that I bought, and and I mean it's nothing for me to. I mean it won't surprise me if I spend a couple of days, you know, doing these mixes, and I don't mean like 3 or 4 hours. I mean you know long days doing it because the stereo mixes are different than the Atmos mixes. And, you know, sometimes things come fairly quickly, but sometimes they don't. And it's almost, and say, well, it's only a few instruments. Well, yeah, but now you got to make a few instruments fill the record. You know what I'm saying? And when I mix, I'm not just going, okay, there are the drums. I hear the drums. I hear the bass. I hear the lead vocal. I'm reaching inside all of this, trying to find the right blend so that the whole thing speaks. And it's not just a bunch of notes that, oh, what a nice level that was. Oh, that was a nice snare drum sound. Okay, but now how does the whole thing fit? You
Right.
know, and how does everything work?
That's the art form as well. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
So, and when we get through, if I feel like, and again, I'll go back. I mean, there's kind of nothing more important than the lead vocal, you know, kind of important. Uh, so when we get to it, it's uh, we may just say, "Hey, Thomas, how'd you like?" You know, and I'm sort of repeating myself from what I said earlier, but just from a little different from angle there. And I would, you know, if I ask you to do it, then you know, please do it and do it with a great attitude. And uh, because we never know what we're going to get. I don't consider myself a slave driver. I've been called that before, but every single time. And I probably shouldn't say this, Thomas, but I'm going to say it anyway. The guy told me one time, Danny Jones, you're a slave driver. I said, well, let me ask you a question. How'd you sound on your record? Oh, man, that's the best I ever sounded in my life. I said, okay. You know, and that's all I care about. But I told Darrell this the other night. I want Thomas Alexander to have an incredibly good record.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and you know what?
Too.
I mean, I want it for, I mean, if I'm going to be involved in it, then I'm going to do everything that I can do within my abilities, within, all the other, budgets and time and all that sort of thing to do the best that we can. But, just aside from all that, Danny wants Thomas to have a great record. I hear the things that you've done, and, most of them, were years ago. I want you to have a great record now. And a record right now.
And I feel the same way. I mean, I sang that 30 years ago.
Right.
And my voice was different then.
Well, can you expound right quick where you feel about this project? Like, what you would like it to look like and everything? Go ahead.
Okay. Personally, going back and like re-singing the vocal, I had to rethink it because 30 years ago, when I sang it, my voice was totally different. I had more range and so on like that then. And then while I was doing my vocals, I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm a thinking vocalist. In my mind, I can't sing it the way I did 30 years ago. And that's why some of the lines were, instead of the line going, if I run to you, I ended up going, if I run to you. So I had to rethink how I was going to try and do these vocals because I can't reproduce what I did 30 years ago. Yeah. I know that physically I can't do it. With age comes a lot of different ways of thinking about things. So, I mean, for me to have to go back and re-sing the vocals, then I would have to think of it different. I'd have to rethink how I wanted to sing the vocal to make it match what we're going to do with the song, and then I was even thinking, maybe it's in a higher key than comfortable for me now.
Oh, do you think so?
Well, there were things in my mind that I'm thinking as I'm singing it, trying to, be my 30-year younger self. And I know I'm not my 30-year younger self. My voice has changed, my range has changed. So I even thought, well, what if we did it in a lower key?
Well, as opposed to that, I would think, or I would recommend to you that you think of it as just simply a whole new performance.
Right. It will be a totally new performance, yes, but
exactly. But I mean, imagine if the song were out for a while and you're on tour with your band and everything, and now you're just going to sing the song again. Right. Well, it's the same thing. You're going to be singing it as Thomas Alexander, who you are today.
Exactly.
Who you were, and I think that what Danny is saying is that that's perfectly fine.
Oh yeah. Let me just interject this. If I didn't think that you could do a great job on this, we might not be on this conversation at all. And I don't mean that to sound cold, but it is true. But I've heard things. I really like the way you started some of the verses because this, and again, forgive me for not being able to be more specific because I need to get into it more. But there's certain ways that when you started, I can't remember if it's the beginning of the verse or like the second half of the verse. The verses were like 16 bars long, if I remember. if you're thinking of it as a long verse like that. And I can't remember if it was at the beginning of the first eight or the beginning of like the ninth bar, the second eight. But I thought, oh, that's nice. That's cool because it's a little lower and because what I have in mind when I say about taking, some of the vocals out and just leaving certain places that we're going to do, you know, and you guys have probably heard me say some of these things before, so forgive me for repeating myself, but one of my philosophies in producing is you figure out what an artist does really well and you put a spotlight on it. And what they don't do well, don't do. Okay. Right. So if it doesn't bother me, I mean, it's also not surprising that you're not doing all the little high things that you did 30 years ago. But it's like, okay, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of other cool things, right, that can go on in it. And I just want to make sure that, that we capture all of that. So it is something, that you can do. I don't mind pushing people, including myself, stretching, but you don't want to sound like you were trying to do something, but you just couldn't do it. That's not believable.
Exactly.
And nobody's going to react to that in any kind of a positive way. But I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned that you can't do a great vocal on this. That's what I'm saying. You've already done some really good stuff here. I'm just saying I'm always okay, well, all right, that's cool. Now, what do you think? Because I think when it's all said and done, and when you hear what we're going to end up doing to it, you're going to think a little bit differently with this. And I think that's going to at least potentially bring out something that could be better than what you've already done.
Right. I'm open.
Great.
When it comes time for somebody making a suggestion about something.
Yeah.
Because, my idea of what I hear and what I think it is might not necessarily be what might work in that particular situation. So I'm open for suggestions.
Well, and I probably will have some.
And I appreciate that because it's important. I mean, if I walked in there and just killed it, then we'd be sitting there going, right? I mean, how often does it happen?
It happens
somebody they'll do a line or something, and it's just like, whoa, I like that.
Oh yeah.
Or an idea, they'll do something, and you go, whoa, I like that. But and not necessarily everything will be killer, but we can make it killer.
Yeah. And I can see us at some point, all these are possibilities at this point, they're not specifics, but I can also see us going, okay, now you recorded all these vocals at home, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. I can see us getting on a session wire and you're still recording to your machine, but you got us in the room, so to speak. And you know what? And sometimes people go, oh man, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, that's the very reason we want to do that. Because, sometimes when you're performing in front of an audience, even in this case, if it's an audience of just, one or two people, it's still, you're gonna do your thing. And then that way I could, or either one of us could say, what did you think about this? What if you did that here? What if you went up on that line? What if you went down on that line? Oh, man, that little part of your voice sounds really good down there when you get down to that low part down there. And again, the great thing is, we basically have unlimited tracks, and I really don't like doing 1,000 tracks. I mean, I really, really don't. It's like doing vocal comps is among my least favorite things to do. Right. However, I'm the same guy that said there's nothing more important than the lead vocal. So if we need to do that, and I do that all the time, that's nothing new for me, to do. Now, we may not even have to get to that, but I just know that with some of the thoughts that I have as far as the changing of the arrangement, I just really do think you're going to find, oh, well, I have more time to do this here. And then I don't have to do this because that's already been taken care of by other little things. And that it could be something that I think could be just, really special. And then, when it's all said and done, we have this friend that knows all about this metadata stuff. And we need to put this out. We need to put this in these music supervisors. Barry Coughing has one. There's another guy I just met. I was on a panel with in San Diego, who's in Los Angeles, who has one, and that's what he does. He's like a Barry counterpart, with another company. And he's already asked me, he says, hey man, send me your stuff. And he has a huge publishing catalog. And as a matter of fact, what I'll I will do this. Once we get done and we all feel good about it, I'm going to send him a copy of this and say, hey, we have this, could you place this someplace? And also, you hear our artist, because he told me he has like 500 or 600 songs in his catalog. And because I was telling him about a couple of artists that I was getting ready to release. And he said, I said, one in particular, I said, I said, these guys are really good writers, but, I'm always looking for this like killer song. And I said, but, we're going to be cutting again, but not for a while, because we're just getting ready to release this 6-song EP. And he said, well, that's all right. If I get to hear the artist, he said, I'll keep them in the back of my mind as I'm checking out songs in my catalog. So maybe he would have something, that could work, for you in that category. If the songs aren't really good, there's really no reason to do them.
Right.
I mean, if you have nothing else to do with your time, then you always go for whatever the best is. Even if you don't think it's the greatest song in the world, if it's the best you have, then that's what you go with. And it's better to be doing something than just sitting around, waiting forever for something. But at the same time, as a producer, I'm always wanting to find this great song, because a great song is a great song. And then just go in with a great production. Don't mess it up, and you just increase your chances of getting airplay tremendously.
I think we need to go back to the business side of it and kind of nail that down if we can.
Okay.
I had thrown out the suggestion of paying outright versus the three-way split versus the combination options and all of that. Thomas, where does that sit with you? Either of those ideas?
I'm open to hear all the options.
Right. Well, the three options that he mentioned, and I want to put it out there again.
Yeah.
And I'm diving into this pool of discomfort that everybody has, because we're money and all of that kind of stuff and everything. We're so the first option is flat out just pay Danny to do what it is that the magic that he does, production and mixing. The second option is to do three-way. I brought the music redo, you brought the vocals, Danny's gonna bring production and mixing. All right, so equal shares type of thing, 1 word, 1/3 type of thing. All right, and the third option was do the 1 word, 1/3 equal split, but we pay Danny for his time for the mixing. Does that make sense? So is everybody on the same page of what the options are that we had laid out?
Yeah, I think so.
And all of that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we need to decide on one of those to go forward with. Because at the end of the day, you have to be happy not just with the project, but with, what you're getting out of it too. I mean, we all hope that we'll all benefit from the success of the project ultimately, but you have to get to that point.
So what we talk about when we talk about third, that's owners of the masters, because we don't own the song.
Right. We don't own the song. We're talking about the master because we can't say we own something that we don't own.
Right.
We're talking strictly the master.
It'd be interesting to hear what this is going to sound like.
Heck yeah, right? I mean, in the Atmos, I mean, wow. Now I do have some production issues. I personally like that idea. I don't know how it fits. The way I would do it would be I would put that in, but what I would say would be, okay, with all of the sales and activity, I would like to recoup and then everything else gets the split. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? No.
Yeah. There's another. Well,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I understand that, but not but.
And I'm open. By the way, go ahead.
Okay, but we start we take. I'm trying to think how to say. I know what I want to say. I'm trying to figure out to get.
Well, the reason I say that is because that means that Danny, you would get paid for doing the mixing. You will be paid.
Yes.
Okay. And then I would recoup mine from the royalties from whatever we make, like from stage dive and airplay and all that other stuff, right? And then now I'm paid. And then we go into the partnership and then we start paying the partnership. So we've taken care of all of our obligations to produce this and get it out. I mean, there will be other minuscule costs and stuff like that.
Here's where I was trying to come from.
Mm-hmm.
In the days of royalties, you didn't start collecting royalties until you had recouped the cost, which is what we're saying here.
Literally.
But the amount actually started from day one. So it was, let's say we get $100.
Right.
Let's say we get $300. That first $300 is part of what you get.
Yes.
In your $350.
Right.
But I'm trying to think how, because it used to be, okay, your amount, it's like you got the percentage from the first record sold, but you didn't actually start getting that money until after.
Yeah. After you recouped everything that it went in to make the record. Yeah. But you see, that's when you have that's when the record labels used to tweak things and do all kinds of crazy, I'm not talking anything like that. No way. I like to sleep at night. All right. I'm talking about, here's a record, right? Our baby grows up and it is now a toddler and a person. It's starting to walk, and starting to walk, it is earning money. Okay. So I want it to pay for everything that has gotten it to this point, which is you, the mixing. So that will be paid already. Me, for paying you that. All right. So give me that back. So I'm paid. So then now going forward, it's now everything from that point gets split equally. 1/3, 1/3, 0.3, equally.
I'm okay with that.
Does that make sense, Thomas?
Yeah.
And
I don't have
any questions that you don't understand, please speak up.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem with that because it makes sense.
Yes.
Because it has to start somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It does. And obviously there's the possibility of you never making your money back.
True that. Yeah. In other words, I'm taking.
But there's also a possibility if we land this in one movie. We're all in.
Yep.
We're in the black.
We have more money than we want to deal with. What do you say? More money, more problems. But see you let people know what you got.
And then that's when we start the next project.
But yeah.
But
it will be a proven formula, in other words. So, but my point is that doing it that way, then, because we want to make sure that the bottom line is taken care of, meaning our resources are maintained so that we can continue to move forward.
Yeah.
Danny, you just set up a new recording scenario, okay, to be able to, work with this project and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be coming off of my resources in order to make sure that you're covered, to do this. And Thomas is taking care of his studio time and all of this kind of stuff. So all of these things need to be recouped back,
Right.
over time. So what I'm talking about in terms of like our physical cash outlay into the situation, Danny, you get paid for the time to do the mixing, and I'll get paid when the royalties come in. We recoup them, and then
Now,
go into the third.
what if we have to hire another musician?
Well, I guess that kind of falls into the same thing. I mean, if we have to pay them $250 to lay a line, I mean, I'm gonna try.
I don't think it's going to be that much.
Or even less, whatever it is, $75 a dinner.
It'd probably be more than that.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever that amount is, then that just gets added to that, to that bill.
Is that something that you would incur that cost?
Yeah, I think I could cover it within reason. I mean, again,
anything under $10,000. I'm kidding.
$10,000 Jamaican? Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah. Oh. No. Well, and obviously we're going to talk about this, but see, I don't see necessarily, I mean, at least at this point, and you may be able to deliver what we need with your violin.
Oh, and a violin part. Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, because it depends on what we need, what we decide to do. Because like I said, I've done this before in this particular genre. This is something that I do. That's why when he played the song.
But it could be, could also be really, unique. But I'll say this too, as far as, Thomas give us everything that he has to give, vocally. Anything that I happen to have, I play keyboards on some tracks that I do. I'm not my favorite keyboard player, but I do come up with parts I think that work sometimes. But I'm actually hoping I don't have to do that. But if I do, and then whatever you have to do, like with violin and doing all this stuff, we're including that in our production. That's part of, it's like
that's all part of the one third. The only reason I mentioned money is because money is money. And that is something like if there's going to be some outlay, like you're outlaying your time to do the mixing, not that the production piece does not have value. It does.
It does.
But you're charging for the mixing time. Okay. Your production time is the time that you're donating, just like I'm donating the music and Thomas is donating the voice, if that makes sense. Right. So we're equating each of those to equal parts to creating, the master. And the mixing is what you're charging for because you have the equipment to pay for and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm doing the outlay financially, so I want to recoup that. So then I will be paid back. So I'm essentially taking the risk.
And of course, true, but also you're absolutely correct. Okay.
All right. So that in and of itself, just has its inherent value and is much loved, much appreciated, and all that kind of stuff. I just want to lay it like we just did.
Listen, I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, because this is like like I said,
down the road, because this is a production discussion. This is a production, and we really is something that people should do more of.
Sometimes when you do things for record companies, you get paid more. Sometimes,
yes, because corporations, businesses usually tend to have more resources, i.e., deeper pockets, than individuals.
But also, it also comes into the quantity as well. I've cut people slack because they had a whole lot of songs.
Yeah, I mean, they could come to you with a collection of 20 songs to work on, and that's going to carry a different cost
It's still, I mean, it's only going to go down so much, to a point, because these things do take time,
Yeah.
to do. And I'm not a wham bam, thank you, ma'am kind of guy. I want these, I mean, we're trying to put things out that people can relate to,
Yes.
and the quality has to be
And
there.
has staying power in the industry. They play it today and they'll want to hear it again just as much 30
Yeah.
years from now, assuming that we don't destroy society.
I still have records getting played, some that I did 40 years ago, and they're still out there.
So you understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. And
A lot of
I wish I would have had this conversation uh, with everybody, because I've had some people go, "Oh, wait a minute, I didn't say that." And it's like,
But you see, that's the thing about the whole EntreMusician thought process. That's what's meant by mindset, discipline, and focus. You want to take on the hard tasks and get
yeah,
put in the arrangement that it's supposed to be, so that this project ends up being something that everybody enjoys being a part of and is not thought of as being a burden
yeah.
or problem, or going back,
Well,
time from now, I wish I hadn't done that with them, blah, blah, blah.
oh yeah, but the thing that makes this, I don't want to say difficult, but for lack of a better word, challenging at times, maybe I'll put it that way, is is with this group of people, because I feel this camaraderie, that we have here. If I just have a client says, "Well, how much do you charge to do this?" I say, "Oh, it's X amount of dollars, and I'll do this. This is what I cover, in that." And I don't have any problem with that. It's when you're, dealing with people who become friends, and you don't. I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage of anybody, but also I don't want to be taken advantage of.
Exactly. It's difficult. But you always have to maintain that borderline between friendship and business.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people need to
absolutely.
know you as that person. If you're going to provide a service that someone wants to purchase from you, yes, you might forego a certain amount of profit, if you will, to, help facilitate them, like you said, because they're a friend. But that can only go so far, because after a certain point, you start cutting into your own margins, your own operating margin. And that gets to be a problem. And true friends need to understand that concept.
Yeah, and you need to remain friends.
Yes.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And there could be times when you go, I'm sorry, we can't do this one. It's just
Exactly.
it's just not going to work. I can't do it for that, or we don't want to pay you for that. Not that you're not worth it,
Right.
but we are just not in a position to be able to do that.
I understand.
And
Exactly.
I never like those, but at the same time, they do happen.
Yes.
They
It's
do happen, yeah.
it's part of business. You would think by the time, you know, we get out of high school or college or whatever, that we grow up a little bit, but there's still a lot of me that
It's a
I'm gonna
sickness.
grow up one of these days,
All
maybe.
exist on a bell curve. There's people on this end and people on this end, and most people are in the middle. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it falls all the time. All the
Well,
time.
the cool thing is, that I think is cool, is that we're doing something.
Oh.
That there's a plan to get something done, so that we'll, in a matter of time, I don't know how long that's going to be, but in a matter of time here, we're going to have something that didn't really exist before.
Well, I think in order to solidify this, because I think we're all in agreement of the plan is to do the 1/3 ownership for each of us, and to pay you X for your mixing services / time. Every on the same page? Can I get a yes from everybody?
I think
Yes.
that's fair.
Okay.
More
So
than
there's
fair,
that
actually.
piece. All the other stuff that'll come up, we can handle as we go along and fit it within that plan.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So then the next actual production steps would be for you, Danny, to give us your notes.
Yep.
Do your listens, take notes of where you think changes in the arrangement and or additions of chords or harmonies or whatever it is that you're hearing in your production year, where those need to happen. And then I'll generate what it is that needs to happen from my end. And Thomas
Yeah.
can do the same thing.
Yeah. And then once you give me, the suggestions as to where the vocal should be
Yes.
from what
Yeah.
you hear, then it's
Yeah.
up to me to deliver that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So at the moment, it's on me.
Appreciate that.
You know.
Sorry, man.
Yes, at the moment it's on you. And that's just reality because
Yeah.
it'll go from person to person to person. At the moment, once you tell us what it is that you think we need to do for the song, then it's on us.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Well,
then vice versa.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll, I use my term slicing and dicing. I will do that, and then let's get back together, play it for you,
Yes.
get your comments. See if we're all in agreement there.
So what that means is we need to have not just one production meeting, there needs to be subsequent production meetings
I think so. Yeah.
for this
Right.
type of project. And
Because
you do
we have
that
to
and
walk it
literally
from
do
the beginning,
Yes.
to the point where everybody says, yes,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So I will jump on this, as soon as I can. I just know, well, like I said, I don't have all the ideas worked out yet.
But you've got some ideas, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, I have enough to get started with, and we'll go from there, and then, like we said, I'll present it to you guys, and you go, "Wow, it's the greatest thing I ever heard," or "Boy, that sucked,"
Well,
Hopefully,
that's the purpose of a production meeting, yes.
well, it is, and as long as we all, a committee can be a wonderful thing or a horrible thing, but when a committee works, it's really good.
Absolutely.
Because you have three mindsets coming in who are every one of us on the planet look at something a little differently.
Right.
But if we can come up with something that I think everybody goes, yeah, this is cool, and also, just as the old saying goes, check the ego at the door, because it's not about that. We all want the same thing here.
I think we're old enough to understand that.
Yeah. And
actually do it.
I'm a firm believer that there is always and will always be more than one way to do anything.
Yes.
So we have ideas and we go and you know what? Sometimes the ideas just don't work.
True. But
That's
then there's other times
that's true.
that little spark
this
blows into a full-blown fire, I think.
Yeah, Alan Toussaint was probably the most brilliant person that I've ever really known really well and worked with. And he was also known as a great horn arranger. And I remember one session that we did, and here's a man, who's written a gazillion hit songs and had a lot of hit records. And he's in the middle of the session, the horn session, and he stops and he rewrites something. He comes back in afterwards and he said, I just don't get it. I've been trying to make this one thing work for 15 years, and it just doesn't work, and I don't know why. And I'm going, wow. That's quite a statement.
That's because everybody has a blind spot.
Yeah, there's just something.
Yeah.
He told me another thing too. He did an arrangements on a Paul Simon record years ago, and he said it was a New Orleans thing, and that's what they hired him to do the arrangements. And he said, I got the record back when it was finished, and I listened, and he said, they used about half of what I wrote. And he said, at first I was insulted. I thought, well, what? And he said, then I listened again and it went, they really knew what they were doing, because what they left was really, really good. And I mean,
cats like Quincy Jones and all of these guys, you know them. They'll say you record a lot and then you start taking out.
Oh, absolutely.
The good stuff, like you were talking about earlier, leaving the good stuff and the stuff that really doesn't add anything, you take it out, and what's left is like golden nugget. Yeah.
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 So anyway, I'm glad I like doing this.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for joining us in this episode of the EntreMusician podcast. And as always, I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. Peace and blessings until next time. Take care.